All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the Lionel Sanders team press conference, I guess you could say. First and foremost, just want to thank all the sponsors, Freshie, Lululemon, Whoop, Zwift, Canyon, Discord, Blue 70, Form, Louis Garneau, and also Head Wheels. I think just given the circumstances of this race, the time, lots of illnesses, Lionel sponsors have been generous enough to forego a lot of like meet and greets, kind of fan exposure, things like that, just so we can get Lionel to the start line.
That seems to be the test this race is can you make it to the start line?
To the start line.
You're already a champion if you can make it to the start line.
Exactly. So we're just trying to get him to the race firing on all cylinders. And then thankfully Discord, one of Lionel's sponsors, has an awesome function in the server, which is called Take the Stage. So we're actually live on Discord right now, and we'll take some questions from there at the end of the press conference. Yeah, without further ado, let's get rolling. How are you feeling?
I almost didn't make it actually to the start line. Well, we still have 2 more days, but I'm a complete idiot, and last Saturday was running full tilt in the race pace session downhill. Ari, playing race tactics, became Sam Long and gapped me like he did in the St. George 70.3. And I'm paying attention to him, and where the sidewalk meets the road, I tripped going about 320 per kilometer and landed on my hip and elbow and hand and scuffed it all up. And I was like, oh my God, I literally am not going to make it to the start line. But fortunately, it wasn't that bad, and got up, finished the session, and it's all good, but almost didn't make it for my own stupid fault. So this is a test, this one.
This is. Speaking of that, we are here and clearly not in Kona. We're in St. George. Give us your thoughts on the atmosphere. Are you starting to feel like this is a world championship? What are your thoughts on St. George?
Well, St. George is my favorite race, literally my favorite race on the circuit, so the 70.3. So I love coming here. I've come here, I think we calculated 7 times now since 2014 for both vacation and races. This will be the first time I get to do an Ironman on the course. Admittedly, it is an extremely difficult course, so I'm both excited and nervous for it. In terms of it feeling like a world championship, it definitely doesn't have the Kona feel. Kona is so concentrated, like everyone is in like a 5-mile radius, the entire race, all the pros, everyone doing the race, all the media, all the various, sponsors and all that sort of thing. And so like you just can't get away from it. You just can't get away from the hype. Whereas I'm out here by the swim start, and I feel like I'm just doing my own thing out here. Ari and I went, we did a final bike workout today out on course, and we saw maybe, 12 people or so out there. In Kona, if you went and did final workouts today out on the Queen K, you would literally be passing 1,000 people probably. So it doesn't have that feel, but I quite like the feel of this one. This is just going to be a bona fide, the best guys who can make it are here. Cut the hype, cut all that stuff. Who's the best on the day on an extremely difficult course? And that is unique, and I'm excited to see.
Speaking of the guys that are here, we do know that there's currently Jan Frodeno's not here, the reigning world champion, Patrick Lang. The start list is, I don't want to say narrowed down a bit because there are the best guys here, but what pre-race precautions have you taken? What have you done to make it to the start line?
Yeah, I basically have hibernated for the past 4 months. Like I haven't really done much. I've lived in my bubble. First time in my career, I didn't go to the press conference for Oceanside just because I didn't want to. If I did get sick, I knew that it would probably be the end of this race. So first time in my career, I didn't do that, which I enjoy doing those types of things, but it just was like, I have to make this decision. If I'm all in on this race, then you're all in on this race. And I rode a lot on the trainer. I didn't want to be out taking risks with the cars. Admittedly, I did have a few sessions that needed to be done outside on the road. I know road's a risk. I've been hit 4 times. And so I tried to, minimize all risk in every facet that I could. And so I did back on the trainer for a ton, which I think was an advantage and will work out well on the race day. And yeah, it's just those are the big things. Is just trying to stay healthy. And I admittedly, I think I learned a bit of a lesson going into Oceanside. When the taper came, it was like my body completely shut off, and I felt extremely tired and like sleeping. I almost hit my record sleep, like 10 and a half hours sleep, which for me, I rarely can sleep much over 8 hours. And I think my body was just telling me, I think you may have pushed the training a bit, the volume a bit too high. And that's just insecurity. I was, going on Strava and looking at Gustav and Christian and Sam and trying to keep up with their levels of volume. And I don't have the capacity to keep up with that volume and the intensity. So after that, I made sure to curb the volume down a bit. And now I feel like 100 times better. And this taper, I feel like, okay, I'm firing on all cylinders this time.
Before we dive into the race and the competitors, talk to us a little bit about this course. Some people, professional athletes, have mentioned that you guys will go sub-8. Some have said there's no way we go sub-8. How much of a factor will the wind, the heat, the terrain of this course play on race day?
Yeah, I mean, if it's like it is right now, or even remotely like it is right now, there's absolutely no way anyone goes sub-8 on this course. This course, I mean, if you look on Strava, Christian rode it at what appears to be close to race pace maybe 4 or 5 days ago, and he averaged right around 40K an hour, so a 430 bike split. I rode the first 2/3 of the course, averaging about 300 watts, and I went 40K an hour, so a 430 bike split. Now, mind you, you're slowing down into stop signs and lights and everything, so you would probably get a little bit on top of that. If the fastest bike split's under 420, I'll be absolutely amazed. It's a hard, honest course. 7,800 feet of climbing. Coeur d'Alene was similar to that, about 7,500 feet of climbing, and Sam, I think, had the fastest bike split on a good bike. Coming from behind, having to bike pretty hard, I think he was about 422. So I see in no world that we're under 415. And then if you crunch the numbers on that, there's also 450 meters of gain on the run off of a very individual type bike. I just don't see someone going much under 240 on this course. Admittedly, I did think it was twice the gain, of which case I thought the fastest run wouldn't be anything under 245, but now that I see that it's actually not as hard as I had originally thought, it's only 450, which is still like the same as Kona, which is quite a hard run course. Sub 240 will be an excellent run, and it may not come from the guy who wins, you know what I mean? It come from someone who kind of did their own thing and didn't go with the race dynamics on the bike. So, yeah, it's a tough course for sure. I don't know how we go under 8 hours really. That'll be pretty impressive.
Diving into your career, it seems like we've seen a big shift, which we'll get into here in a little bit, but there's two things you've struggled with at the Ironman distance in the past, and would love to ask you questions about both of those. One of them being your swim deficit. How much does your swim deficit matter? Does it matter? And then what have you done to make it better in this field?
Of course, the swim deficit matters. You lose in the swim for sure. I mean, in Kona 2015, I came out of the water with an 11-minute deficit. So you lost in the swim. Doesn't matter how good your bike run is, absolute world tour, excellent biking ability, you lose. 11-minute deficit, you're not. These guys are just far too properly prepared now. From my standpoint, I can't really be insecure about the deficit being 5 minutes because that's a certain possibility. It could, if it's windy like this, it could be quite a difficult swim. I may very well miss the second group. I mean, this Ironman World Championship racing is mainly good swimmers. In order to make it to the World Champs, if you're not a good swimmer, it means you're an excellent bike runner. But the level even of the weak swimmers has absolutely elevated. So you have to be mentally prepared for anything and everything because I would like to see what I'm capable of regardless of anything. So, I take solace, for instance, in 2018, Bart Arnott's and I swam together and we didn't make the Cam Wurf Sebastian Kienle pack, the second pack, and he went on to finish second. So he basically did an 8-hour individual time trial, and he broke 8 hours, I believe, that day as well in Kona. And so it may even have been an advantage in a sense for him that year because he didn't get involved in the dynamics. He didn't try and go out with Wurf and blow his legs off in the first half of the bike. and he just did what he was capable of from start to finish. And so, I take solace that that's a possibility, certainly on a race like this where it's very individual. 50% of this race is your own power, undoubtedly, because you're going uphill and there's very little draft effect, so being with a group is of not much relevance. Of course, I would like to come out with Gustav like I did in Florida. That's like a 100 to 1 odds, but that would be the perfect world. The likely scenario is I come out with my usual group of Keenlay and Sam and Worf. Well, Worf swims pretty good with very little training, so he could make that pack, but that's probably likely who I would come out with. But it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. If I come out totally last place, it doesn't change anything. In fact, it simplifies it, actually, because now it's 295 watts to the end of the bike. And, go out, I don't know, start off around 350 per kilometer and see how that feels and see if you can go the whole way averaging that kind of a pace.
Next thing is nutrition. I know that in your past Ironmans, you struggle with nutrition and you feel like, it seems like you've really come around this last year ever since 2017. Do you have a nutrition plan for race day? What are you doing for nutrition now?
To blame things, I've had this tendency to blame my poor performances on one thing, and so I'm done doing that. Ironman's an extremely complex equation, and so the way I was swimming, and I never even really answered your question. Actually, I forgot about what have I been doing to improve my swimming. I mean, I'm swimming very differently. I've had an in-person coach, Justin Slade at Aquabears, for over a year. The way that we're creating speed is much different in terms of I used to create it in a very anaerobic manner, and now I'm much more aerobic. I wouldn't say I'm swimming any faster. I'm not swimming any faster, but as Coach Mikal said, even if you don't swim any faster, but you get out of the swim a lot fresher because you're not using as much anaerobic energy sources, that is a win in Ironman. It would be a problem in ITU level racing, but it's a win in Ironman because Ironman is won and lost in the final hour, not in the first hour. Well, you can lose in the first hour. We already talked about that. What was the question again? The second question? Nutrition, yes. My point in saying that is that the swim has affected all of the way I was training to swim. Every Ironman I have done, even Florida, the way I was training to swim was affecting the back half of the Ironman. The nutrition, the way I was training the bike affected the back half of the Ironman. The way I was training the run affected the back half of the Ironman. And then, of course, the nutrition affects the Ironman. And so all of these things. So nutrition, of course, I blamed in Coeur d'Alene. I blamed everything on nutrition. It wasn't all nutrition the problems. Of course, it was a big problem. And then I spent the next, I believe I did 4 Ironmans after in Tri-Battle, Copenhagen, Chattanooga, and Florida, basically trying to figure out the nutrition and get a good sense of it. And I do have a good sense of it now. Having a good sense of it is entirely different than actually going out there and executing it. I know that in these conditions, the moment my feet touch the pedals, I'm probably losing 1.8 liters an hour. And by the end of the bike, I'm at 2.2 to 2.3 liters. And the moment I get off the bike, I'm losing 2.3 to 2.8 liters every single hour of fluid. Every liter I lose, I'm losing 1 gram to 1.5 grams of sodium, and I'm burning, I'm burning a massive amount, but in terms of upper absorption ability, I'm probably about 120 grams while biking of carbohydrate, and 100 grams is pushing it on running. So I know all the underlying pieces of the puzzle. Doing it, though, in the race setting with all these guys around you, full tilt, and trying to do your best to keep up with those losses is a totally different story. I mean, it boils down to, I believe, first understanding it, which I understand, and then secondly, being in really good shape such that the Ironman bike should be fairly easy so that you actually can consume at the rate that you need to and not be just totally on the limit, not thinking about drinking, not thinking about eating, and then blowing up, massively at the end. So I believe I'm there as well, decently well. And so I don't know if that answers your question.
What are you eating and drinking?
I will start with 2 bottles of Scratch Labs on the bike at 40 grams of carbohydrates, and per 600 milliliters, there's about 700 milligrams of sodium. I'll start with 2 of those. And then for the rest of the bike, I will have approximately 2 to 3 Morton gels, and then maple syrup mixed with sodium citrate, trying to consume at a quantity of 1 gram of sodium citrate per liter of fluid consumed, and 120 grams of carbohydrates per hour. That's the goal. That's what I will look to do on the bike. And then on the run, just same idea, just a little bit less carbohydrate consumption and a little bit more water consumption.
Nice. Let's dive into race dynamics. Clearly the most talked about athletes going into the race this weekend, who I think everyone is racing, is the Norwegians. You have them, and then you also have someone like the likes of Cam Wurf that can also impact the race from a biking standpoint. How will the race dynamics play out, do you think? And then also, do you already have a complete race plan right now, right here?
I couldn't tell you how the race dynamics are going to pan out. You know, my guess would be that guys like Bakkegard, Sam Laidlow, Brownlee, etc., try to create a gap on Christian and Gustav because they would rather not come out of the water with him. So, you know, I think that works to my advantage a bit because then the second pack, if you want to call them, let's call them the breakaway, the really, really strong swimmers. Then the second pack, you know, we'll kind of be looking at each other, kind of like who's going to lead this thing, which could work to our advantage if we call my pack the third pack that I have a shot at making. And then maybe we won't be too far behind Christian and Gustav, which would be really nice. On the other hand, I mean, Christian may make that pack with Brownlee and Bakkegard, and I mean, that's going to be an interesting game then, those guys all together on the front. You know, the swimmer, from a swimming standpoint, it boils down to who's going to be the enforcer, who's going to be the guy who wants to go to the front and push the pace of the race. Sam Laidlow seems like he might do that. Brownlee seems like he might do it. I don't know. It's really hard to say, you know. It's an Ironman and it's an extremely difficult course. So I think being conservative is an advantage on this course because worst case scenario, you make it all up on the second half of the run. From my standpoint, coming out of the water, basically I have to make an assessment. If I'm with Sam and Kienle and Wurf, I have to look down at the power meter. I ain't going to look at it for the first, 20 minutes, but after the first 20 minutes, I'm going to look down. I'm going to keep up with them, and I'm going to look down at the power meter, and if it reads 340 watts, that's the end of that. I'm just not going to be able to go with these guys because I would like to run well, the back half of the run. It's really my only goal. With reflection, I don't know if I've ever in a world championship made it to mile 11 still functioning on the run. Like I've been completely destroyed. In fact, I've been destroyed at mile 8 in the Ironman World Championship on the run. Do you know how far that is to go when you're destroyed 8 miles in? Like destroyed. Like hard to wrap my head coming up onto the Queen K. Hard to wrap my head around how much further I have to go. Like it's just a horrible feeling. I can't do it to myself. Plus it's not racing. That's not racing. You're not doing it properly. That is gross ignorance of an Ironman and the demands of an Ironman when you are in that state only 8 miles into the run. And I'm done doing that. If Wurf is a better biker, so if I can't ride with Wurf, then go ahead. Like, it's a totally different story in Florida. Florida, you got to kind of make some things because you are getting an advantage being with guys. It's a large draft tail. It's, you're going 45 to 50 kilometers an hour most of the time. And so, you may be served to weather the storm a bit longer and it starts to settle down just so you're still with a group of guys. Because when you're out there in a course like Florida solo, and you pop off, I mean, all of a sudden that group is going 2-3 kilometers an hour faster than you at the same power output as you were pushing when you were with them. This course is not going to behave like that, not nearly to that level. And so that's really the only pivotal point for me will be what does the power meter say if I'm with the Uber bikers, what does the power meter say? And if it says too much, then it's going to be an ITT. And that's no problem. I'm totally mentally and physically prepared to do an ITT, and I have faith that that strategy will result in my best all-around performance on this course.
Speaking of performance in the Norwegians, I think everyone has seen a momentum change in your career as far as where you've come from just quarter lane last year. And doing that, you picked up Mikael Eden to start coaching you now. How has that helped impact you, your career? Has Mikael made an impact on you yourself?
Yeah, we get along really, really well. I mean, he's literally, we agree that Christian and Gustav at the very least are on par with Jan and the top guys in the world. We can't maybe say for certain who's the best in the world, but they are certainly at the level of the best guys in the world, and he sees them every single day. And so, the cool part about that, and also the bad part about it is, I don't really get too much positive feedback, because it's like, what you're doing it's okay. You want to be the best. You're doing things that are decent, you're close. And I work well with that, that's good for me. I don't want to be told you're doing a great job when what you're doing isn't even on level with the best guys in the world, and you have a massive, you're not even nowhere near their swimming ability, nowhere near Christian's swimming ability. So that aspect of things is really nice. And then just the energetic piece of the puzzle, I've always scratched my head why I could be so consistent at 70.3s and so inconsistent at Ironmans. And then, of course, I falsely blamed it purely on nutrition, but it wasn't purely nutrition. It was an energetic piece as well. And so Mikhail really enlightened me on the energetic side of things and how training can push a system in a direction that potentially you don't want to push it in. And I definitely, the last few years, have pushed the system in all three sports in a direction that I don't necessarily want to go. So yesterday in the final run session, it was the first time where I went to do, the high-end stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, wow, I have trained for an Ironman. I have prepared for an Ironman. I can do, upper aerobic all day, no problem, and to go, a fair amount faster than that is like quite hard. But you can be decent at 70.3, but to be absolute peak at Ironman requires you to train in a certain way. And so this time around, Mikhail has enlightened me to that. I'm not in peak 70.3 form because I've wanted to be in peak Ironman form.
Do you see it ever being a conflict of interest? Do you see it almost like, I think there's like a karate movie or something, that the coaches were training the competitor the wrong way because he was a part of their team? Do you ever see it being a conflict of interest that you're training against the guys that you're trying to beat?
Well, I saw that there was a thing on your left. I do follow them, and it was the Arnold Schwarzenegger bit where he's like, who was it? It wasn't Lou. It wasn't Lou Ferrigno. It was the other guy. Who's the other guy?
Oh, it wasn't Lou.
No, it wasn't Lou. It was. Anyways, he's like, I'm like a father to him. Sometimes he comes to me for advices. It's no problem for me to give him the wrong advices. So yeah, of course, you in the back of your head sometimes when we're doing these, pretty insane sessions, you're like, is he just doing this? This is what Ari said. He's like, I wonder if he's just making you do these things to see what you'll do and when you'll say, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. But then you just go on Strava and you look at what Christian and Gustav are doing. You're like, oh, wow, we're not even remotely training as hard as these guys. So I don't think there's a conflict of interest. No, these guys are true sportsmen. I trained with Christian the other day, invited me to come to his race pace session that he did. I just can't wake up early, so I started 3 hours after him. But, these are cool dudes. I think their heads are in the right place. They want to race the best guys at their best. And so I don't think there's going to be a conflict of interest. On the other hand, you have a couple battles, toe-to-toe battles, and I come out on the winning end. Maybe then you start to think about, maybe we don't need to work too much together. But I don't necessarily, that's me thinking into the future about potential things. And I'm a long way off from going toe-to-toe and coming out on the winning end multiple times on these guys. So I wouldn't worry about it. At the very least, I take solace to myself. I'm like, even if they're feeding me 50% incorrect information, I'll take the 50% incorrect information and the 50% correct just to have it.
Yeah. You've seemed to gain a lot of respect for Mikhail. And with that being said, it's almost like a team aspect. This is something you've mentioned in your past videos on that Jan explaining to you at the tribe battle. How important is a team to you? How important is you trusting Mikhail? How important is it you trusting your team with Ivan O'Gorman, Pat, kind of everyone around you?
Well, it's a massive piece of the puzzle. The only thing I do now really is show up to practice and do the practice. And it's quite a relief, It's to not be worrying about the sponsorship side of things, to not be worrying about, am I making the right decisions on the bike, to have someone else giving me insight into those pieces of the puzzle. To not be thinking about, am I doing the right training? What am I going to do this week? Blah, 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 all these things. To not be constantly in the water thinking, oh, my technique's garbage. I need to rip this apart. I've got people thinking about all the things. So I feel that I'm in the best form that I am across all the disciplines now that I've ever been in. And that's a byproduct of just having a good team around you and listening and admitting that you can't do it alone, that you need other people to help you. And so that it took me many years to come to that, but I am there now.
Speaking of team, Erin, your wife, has been one of the first crucial parts of your team. How important is it for you to have her helping you out day in and day out?
Oh, Erin's the best. I mean, she's sitting right here, so I'm not going to say anything wrong. But no, she is the absolute best. And I mean, I do nothing really. I just, she tells me everything I need to do and I do it sometimes. Sometimes I don't, but she gets mad and then I do it. But yeah, she holds the, what do we call her? What is the word?
Team
the
principal.
She's the team principal. We're still in the F1 thing. Absolutely. I think everyone on the team will agree that you need to talk to Erin. Don't talk to me. I don't know nothing about anything.
You have a mantra, no limits. I think a lot of people see that. What exactly does no limits mean to you? Does it mean that you can ride 700 watts? What does no limits mean?
Well, obviously there's physical limits. We all know that. You don't drink for a few days and you'll find out, don't drink water for a few days and you'll find out that you possess physical limits, or don't eat for like 6 hours and you'll find that you have limits. So obviously we have limits. It has nothing to do with physical limits. It's a mindset. It has to do with your attitude and your orientation to your life and the things you're doing in your life. And so, many, many times over the last 10 years, I've come to roadblocks. I've, been extremely humbled. I've been even borderline humiliated, like in Coeur d'Alene, for instance. That was a humiliating thing for me. And, the no limits mindset applied to your life is that just learn the lessons. Like, it's just experience. It's all just experience. And I could have looked at Coeur d'Alene and said, this is the end for me. I'm too embarrassed. I don't want to keep doing this anymore. I don't think I'm cut out. In fact, that was one of the comments, I believe, on our video was, hey, maybe you're just not cut out for Ironman. And, I could have say it. Lots of people say that when they come to roadblocks. They say, maybe it's just not for me. I'm not cut out for that. Maybe I'll just stick to 70.3s. But the no limits mindset is to say, come on now, that's not all you have. You're making lots of mistakes. Like, I know it's painful in the moment right now, but learn the lessons that need to be learned and regroup and carry on and see this thing through to completion and give us your best all the way till the end. And that's the no limits mindset. And that can be applied to anywhere in your life. And of course, I'm going to reach a limit. I think in a year or two, now I've got a great team around me, coaches giving me good training. I think a year or two from now, I probably will begin to near my Ironman limits, you know what I mean, in terms of physical capacity. But once again, I will find new things to push me mentally and to drive me and to as an outlet to find out what I'm capable of and for personal growth. And I don't know what that will be. I'll cross that bridge when I get there. But I'm enjoying the process right now of doing all those things.
Speaking of the journey, I think it's clear to everyone, you have a YouTube channel. You share a lot of your journey on YouTube. What is the point of having your YouTube? Is it for you to become a social media influencer? Is it to share your journey? There's a lot of things that when you make mistakes, you share on there. You could just not share those mistakes. Why do you have a YouTube channel?
I have a YouTube channel. I mean, originally I had the blog, the written blog, which I really enjoyed. Of course, there's many layers to everything. Back in the day, my first sponsor was CompuTrainer, and I basically talked to the owner of CompuTrainer on the phone, and I was like, hey, I think I can promote your product and that sort of thing. And so, my written blog was, of course, sharing my experiences, but also, I didn't have no money. I needed an outlet in order to give insight into my sponsors and people who are helping me. But foundationally, it's always been to share, what I'm doing, the process, the journey, my mindset. A lot of it too is for me to solidify the things that I know and believe and to make them concrete. And that's what I was doing with my written blog, was I would discuss training concepts and mindset concepts going into races and on the other side of races. and they would solidify things that I believed. And so, then we kind of concluded that it's actually probably better and easier, and you can reach a larger audience through like the video medium. And then that's kind of when you came around, and we're like, I was already doing the YouTube a bit, but I was doing kind of a half-assed job at it. And then you came around and said, hey, I think we can do a much better job and make this much, reach more people. And so that's been our foundational, underlying premise, has always been Ironman saved my life. And, I've gotten everything I ever need to get from Ironman. But I believe that this sport can touch people and can change your life for the better with the right orientation. Of course, like any sport, it can also, have negative impacts. But that's why I try and, enlighten people on the positive side of the sport and the correct mindset from my experience that I've observed from both having positive and negative mindsets throughout the years. And that's our vision. That's what we want to do with the YouTube channel. And right now the outlet is through triathlon. And one day it might be something else, but I intend to keep doing that as long as I'm, pushing the boundary of my growth, my personal growth and learning journey. I like sharing that.
So you share a lot of your journey. You also do your race week series and things like that. Does it help you to promote your competitors? What kind of is the point in doing all that?
I mean, I love triathlon. We're all on the same team. It's. I think for a while we thought we were all on the opposite team because we're all fighting for scraps, right? Like triathlon don't have any money really, like from in comparison to the big sports, the bona fide professional sports. I've given this example before, but like last year I went to Galveston and I think it paid like 6 deep. I won the race. I made, I think, $4,000. Second place, I think, made, I don't know, maybe $2,500. And I bet you that's what they spent on flights and hotels, and food and that sort of thing. And so, I mean, we've fought for scraps for many, many years. And so that's a bad mindset, though, you know what I mean? Like, I get why we've done it and why we've kind of looked at each other as not on the same team, but the reality is we're on the same team. What is our mission? Our mission is to grow triathlon to one day on Sunday afternoon. It's live. The Ironman World Championship is a live thing happening, just like the Tour de France is live. You can watch it live. I mean, the Tour de France are 6-hour stage races for 21 days. Why is triathlon, this World Championship, not live this Saturday somewhere on the... I mean, it is. It's on outside, but why can't any person turn on regular TV and watch this race? Because it's got great personalities. It's got everything. I mean, it's got the makings of an amazing sport. And so if I can help with the growth of that in any way, then I will. And you have that vision as well. And so we've been able to fairly quickly build a decent sized platform. And so if we can help get other people's names out there and the great personalities that are in this sport out there a little bit quicker, even better. And the PTO is helping with that. And Ironman is helping with that too. It's going to be on outside TV. So
Facebook, this one.
Facebook, sorry. But you know what I mean? We need to have it on real TV with millions of people watching because I think it will have a positive impact on society. And it's a great sport.
Nice. Well, that's it for the questions, but we do, if one of Lionel's sponsors is Discord, it's essentially like a community of people that chat all things triathlon on the server. We'll put the link in the description below. But this Take the Stage feature, we can ask people, people can ask questions on Discord. So we'll take 2 or 3 questions. So I guess if anyone on Discord wants to raise their hand to ask a question, but we'll dive in. First question with Shane.
I made this mistake actually last time because
right.
you were on the other line.
Yes, that is what it is. Okay, can you hear us?
What do we got?
Who is this?
This is Stephen Apgar. How's it going?
Pretty good.
Hey man,
yeah.
how are you?
Good. So thanks for putting this on. This is great. Good to be able to chat directly with you all. So just want to know what Lionel thinks are some dark horses for the race, people that he's looking out for that maybe everyone else isn't. And then Talbot, I just wanted to call you out. The consummate professional taking stage with no shoes on.
Oh!
How'd you know? Dude, I don't even have pants on. I'm just kidding. Oh, thanks, man. All right, we'll pass it to Lionel.
Dark horses. There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of guys who can do well in this field. I don't know. Like it's disrespectful to call a lot of these guys dark horses because they're not dark horses because they're seasoned professionals. Like Matt Hansen's a seasoned professional. I don't think a lot of people are putting him on the radar, but like he could do really well on this type of a course. He had the fastest run in the May 70.3. Jan van Berkel, I mean, he's won like some big races against some big names. A lot of guys I don't think are thinking that, you know, potentially he could win the whole thing, but undoubtedly he could win the whole thing. Braden Curry as well could win the whole thing. He's good, like all-around athlete. There's just too many guys. Like there's like Florian Angert is a great. He's very used to riding hard on the front. He's a front pack swimmer, used to riding hard by himself. So he's used to running on, you know, extremely tired legs. If he has a good run, I mean, he could win the whole thing. Like there's just so many good guys that we're not talking about. And I think it's disrespectful to call him dark horses, but there's 10 guys for sure who could win this whole thing.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks for taking the call.
Hey, no worries. No worries.
Time, right?
Exactly. All right, we'll see you. We'll move on to the next one.
Good luck, Lionel.
Thanks, man. Cheers.
Let's try to get Shane on here. Invite to speak. We had him a second. There we go. Shane, how you doing?
Yeah, good day, guys. How you going?
Oh, not too bad, man. Good to put a voice to the typing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Thanks for all the great conversations, man. It's been excellent.
Yeah, cheers. I'll be back on there soon. I'll probably go on tonight, actually. But I, you know how it is. You get into the race, you got all these things to think about and to settle in. So I detached for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to do what you got to do.
Yes.
Preparing for something this big, absolutely. Look, Talbot sort of asked the question a little bit earlier at the start of the interview, more around how the addition of sort of McCall and Ari in your training has sort of transformed your sort of view as a professional athlete and changed your perspective to training and competing and helped you develop. I suppose is there any sort of additional sort of things that you can provide to the rest of us here in terms of how those additions of those things to your program have allowed you to continue to grow as an athlete, particularly given your recent sort of exemplar performance at Oceanside?
It's a fascinating question. I mean, I think the root of the whole thing is time. Like I'm one of those people who I just have to make my own mistakes. I don't know why. I've just got to make them and learn them myself and learn. You're not going to reinvent the wheel. You know, the way that things have been done in the past have been done that way for a reason. The training methods have been done that way for a reason, for instance. And so the biggest change that I think has happened to me is just like age, I guess. I don't know, personal growth. I won't say it's age because there's guys who've like Gustav understands a lot of this stuff. He's 26 years old, you know, so it's not necessarily age. I've done way more Ironmans than he has. It's just, for me, it was just time and experience. And now this is the part actually, this is the most nervous I am aspect of the race is I know I'm going to come up to decisions where in the past I will have made a particular decision, and this time I need to make a different decision. And, you know, like for instance, the Cam Worf thing, if I'm riding with Worf in the first 30 minutes, he's still pushing 330, 340 watts, I've got to just say, you're better, you have a higher capacity on the bike, you go ahead, I need to worry about my race. And that, being able to do that has just taken me walking for 5 Ironmans plus and just having a deep understanding of my own personal limitations and what my strengths and weaknesses are and how to extract the absolute most out of myself across swimming, biking, and running. And I just lacked that. And so of course having McCall and Ari around have certainly gave me, I can bounce ideas off, I can learn from them. But the growth happened, I've had lots of people telling me good information, but I didn't listen and I didn't use it. It's taken me a decade of trial and error and having massive blow-ups and, big disappointments to at least feel that I am ready to make better decisions in these types of events. But once again, I'm very nervous about it because, as I said to Aaron yesterday, I could walk the back half of this run just like usual. I could make all the same mistakes again. It's all there for me to do, And really, I want to get there. And when the time comes to make that decision, that correct decision, I want to make the decision. And that's really the only thing I am nervous about going into this race, is when that moment comes, I want to make the right decision. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of how I feel about the race.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, gaining that perspective along the way is something, as we've talked about before on the channel, is probably one of the most important things, because we're always taking who we are now as a person and an athlete and always trying to strive to change and transform and progress to some other sort of ideal perspective. And I think the only way you really do that is putting yourself out there, making mistakes, learning from them, and keep sort of pushing yourself forward to try to achieve that and get that transformation that you're looking for. So, I think you're always open and quite transparent about that. And I think that serves you well as an athlete, but it's great for all of us to be able to have that connection with you and seeing that journey for sure. And, as long as you race within yourself and make those decisions as you need to do, mate, you'll be fine. You proved it at Oceanside. You know what? That was...
Yeah, Oceanside actually worked, as disappointing as it was, it did work out positively in that to run well off of making what I perceived to be a correct decision and then actually closing well solidified that is the way to race, at least on an honest course like this. So, Shane, why do you think some people?
He'd ended.
I was gonna ask him why do you think it's taken me 10 years to figure this out, and other people it takes like one time and they figure it out? You think it's just just personality differences, or what in your experience through talking with many athletes? Maybe you can answer it on the channel.
Yeah, he'll answer on the
channel.
channel.
All right. Cheers, man. Thanks for the question.
All right, let's move to Ryan. We'll do two more questions. Ryan, how you doing, man? Oh, I think you're on mute. Unmute it.
Hey, how about now?
Great. How are you?
Right on. Doing great, guys. Appreciate y'all taking the time to do this.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
Hey, so I'm Ryan from Kentucky. I've qualified for Kona. So, Lionel, my goal for the Big Island is to get off the bike to see you on the run before you finish, okay?
Hey, that sounds great to me, man. Let's do it. I just hope that that I'm not walking when I see you. That's my only...
Likewise. I'm gonna have to burn my legs up to catch you to be able to see you there.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. Bike within yourself, please, for both of us.
Hey, so my question, man, is actually about your bike.
Yeah.
I noticed, obviously, that you were not on your green Canyon with disc brakes, and I've got a Canyon's Speed Max myself. I noticed in Oceanside you were on the Movistar bike without the hydration, and I noticed also that your aero bottle had flown off early in the race. So for this race, are you going with the Movistar TT bike for weight savings, or are you going to do something different to ensure that you've got the nutrition for the duration of the bike?
Well, I put it into battle in Oceanside to test all of these things, and so it was 5 years I've been riding with that frame bottle that popped off, and I hadn't lost it in 5 years. So that was, I think, a bit of a fluke, but that course also has Oceanside has some pretty serious bumps, and I didn't brace for the bump this particular time, and then I lost that frame bottle. So that, I think, was a bit of a fluke. We did, though, learn the lesson about doing a little piece of Velcro on the inside of the cage as well as on the inside of the bottle to at least help potentially, mitigate that in the future. So that was one lesson. The other lesson Now, obviously, aerodynamically, I probably would have preferred to use the other bike in Oceanside because it wasn't that hilly. But I needed to put it into battle before to learn all of these lessons. And so then I had a particular cage, BTA cage. It's the mount is from Drag 2.0, but then the cage I used, I wanted to mount my bike computer onto it. And so I used, I think it's like a profile design cage. And it might be made actually more for like a bottle, an aero bottle, and not actually bottles. But anyways, I mounted the Drag 2.0 cage with just zip ties, and I used this particular cage, which was very like wide open. And the combination of those two things in Oceanside, the weight of the bottles on course, as well as the size of the cage, made it literally impossible to hold the bottle. And when you put the bottle into the cage and the zip ties, they actually pointed the cage down. So it was impossible to keep it in there. So that was like obviously a horrible lesson to learn in the race, but I'm glad I did learn it in the race. And then as well, another piece of the puzzle, which I should have probably done as a backup, but I didn't, was I should have had a behind the saddle cage, of which case in the race, then at least I could have grabbed Gatorades, and they certainly would have stayed in that cage behind the saddle because it's more upright, and it would have been a tighter cage. So that was literally the point of riding that bike in Oceanside. It probably wasn't the bike to ride in Oceanside, but it was for this race. This race has nearly 8,000 feet of climbing, so and a lot of the moves I believe will be made on the climbs, and I would like to at least, you know, if I can be in contention for those moves, then I would like to be on the lightest equipment I can. And so I've corrected most of those with what I said about the Velcro, and then I've got 2 rear behind the saddle cages with Gorilla cages, and the BTA, the Drag 2.0 BTA cage, I then actually mounted to the bar, what do they call them? The aero bar,
pads.
The pads. So it's now level. It doesn't bounce. It points, you know, it's just level. And then I mounted a Gorilla cage to that. And then with hindsight, I also realized I probably could have taken the water bottles or the Gatorade in Oceanside and actually jammed it into that larger cage backwards. So if you ever find yourself in that situation where a bottle is bouncing out, that will probably keep it stable. If you jam it in the reverse direction and then go up like into the little latch thing with the plastic, that'll probably hold it there. And had I just known that, I think that could have resulted in a better performance, or at least me feeling more confident with biking hard in Oceanside. But anyways, that's the extremely long answer to your question.
Awesome. I think it's going to be the winning combination, man.
Yeah, we'll see.
Look forward to you being the Ironman world champion here in the next few days. It's going to happen, buddy.
Cheers, man. I appreciate it. We'll see you in Kona. Train well.
Roger that.
We'll see you. Shane's back on. Shane, you going to tell Lionel why it's taken him 10 years to learn all this?
Yeah, sorry about that. I dropped out for some reason. I'm sort of technically illiterate sometimes.
No, I hear you on that one.
I could hear you ask me the question. I'm like, oh, what happened? Where did it go? I'm in the middle of trying to set up my bike to do a ride before the day.
Good man. Don't be skipping your bike ride just for this.
Confusion. So, look, I think it's a really good question, Lionel, and most of the athletes and teams and stuff that I've worked with over the years, I think it's a combination of both an individual personality construct as well as the social construct. You know, having been fortunate enough to do a lot of work with the Scandinavian countries, you know, I think they have such a collectivism view towards many things. And, you know, most people may or may not know Johan Koss, who is the Norwegian speed skater who won like 6 or 7 gold medals in the Winter Olympics at one time. And I spent a lot of time with him when he was down here in Australia. And they have such a collectivism view towards things where it's not about one person succeeding. It's about everyone succeeds if we all succeed. It's kind of what you were talking about at the start of the interview with what you're all trying to do for triathlon in general is if everybody is successful and, you know, the individual athletes you're profiling, then we all win. But then, of course, that's only the social construct side of it, and you've got to work it out as an individual. And I think anybody who is an athlete, particularly an endurance athlete, we all kind of have a level of competitiveness within us that pushes us and propels us and keeps us going. But it's a double-edged sword, because that competitive nature can sometimes narrow our mindset to think we know better. You know, we're the ones putting our body through things. We're the ones who's putting in the hours. We're the ones pushing ourselves. And so we think we know ourselves. But fundamentally, in order to really progress, which you captured it, you know, in your response to Talbot earlier, is that sometimes we need to step outside of ourselves and listen to others' perspectives as they're observing us in order to learn that forward. So, you know, I think your competitive nature, and as like I said, most of us do, it pushes us so far. But as you know, when you get to the top of the pyramid in any sort of endeavor, whether it's sport, whether it's business, or any aspect of life, it's not the 1%ers, it's the half percenters, the 0.2 percenters that sometimes we need that external view to get us there. And so I don't know if that sort of really answers your question.
That totally answers. That you nailed it on the head, actually. That is what has changed in me. You're right. I wanted it for myself. I was like, I made this. This is me. I made the thing. I made the whole thing. That's my performance. And at some point, I had to relinquish that and say, you don't get me wrong, you can do pretty good by yourself. Well, it's never been. That's a false belief anyway. But at some point, you need to relinquish that, and you need people around you to go to that next level. And it's not my performance, it's our performance. And I'm just a race car driver now, you know what I mean? And so F1, you're right, it's just a very cultural thing. A very cultural thing. Sort of, we want it all for ourselves, this kind of individual culture. But that's fake anyway. Like, it's not real anyway, right? Like, it never is real. It's false. Mm-hmm. So, you got it.
Absolutely.
You got it.
Awesome. Hey,
cheers, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, the doc himself. Thanks, Shane.
No worries, guys. Good luck, Lionel.
Thanks, man.
Thank
Have a good
you.
ride.
We're going to take one more from RPA. He's been in the queue for a little while. RPA, can you hear me? Too bad it's not IPA.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
From Portugal. How are you?
Good. What's your name again?
Rodrigo, from Portugal.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you, man.
So my question is very simple, but a little bit psychological, you know. It's everybody in the world knows that Lionel is prepared for fail, you know. He fails and he comes always stronger and stronger. My question is if when he teaches that legends are made on the battlefield and not at the finish line, if he is prepared, or if he makes some some visualization or mentally visualization about the win, if he's prepared and how he is prepared to win a world championship. That is our objective, you know, our goal of all the fans of Lionel, you know, how he is prepared for that and how he sees that as a reality.
It's a fascinating question, you know, from an athlete standpoint who I have devoted my life. I don't know if I've done it so long now that I don't even know if it matters if I ever win. You know, obviously, when I got into it in 2000, late 2009, early 2010, I saw a picture of Craig Alexander. When I Googled Ironman, I saw a picture of Craig Alexander winning the Ironman World Championship in Kona that year. He had the Australian flag in the right hand, banner draped over his shoulders, teeth gritted, arms flexed. And from that moment on, I was like, I want to do that one day. I want to achieve that one day. But I've been pursuing it so long, I've gotten so much more from it. In fact, I'm glad I didn't win in 2017 because I've learned and grown so much from everything that happened in between. And to achieve the thing that you've devoted your life to, I don't know what's on the other side of that, you know? Like, I don't know what changes. I have mad respect for Jan and guys who have achieved their dream and yet continued to push themselves further. And I'm assuming Jan, when he won Kona the first time, he crossed the line and he said, yeah, that was good, but I have a lot more inside of me. And it was the chasing the more and getting everything out of himself that was the motivation. And so really I believe that's the correct orientation, and that is my orientation. And so I'll be totally fine if I never win, as long as I see this through to completion and I find out what I am capable of across all 3 disciplines and execute it to the best of my ability, and I will be content. To take the win, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it would change anything, to be honest with you. I don't know. Your question, I think, is more are you prepared to win? I mean, of course, it's a weird thing. You're right. It's just a really weird thing. It's like I don't know if I want to win, actually. I want to keep growing. I want to keep growing. I want to keep with the same passion and the same drive. I don't want that to go anywhere. So of course, there actually is a little bit of fear of, will that dissipate once you win? Once you achieve something you've devoted yourself for 10 straight years towards, will that dissipate or will that dwindle a bit on the other side? I'll tell you what, I'd like to find out. I would like to find out, but I'm fully content if it never happens. I'm all good with it as well. And I think that's the correct orientation, because the reality is there's only been 3 guys to win an Ironman World Championship in the last, how many years now? 7 years? There's only been 3 individuals to do it. And so it's like we all want it, and only a select few get to ever do it. And, it's been great guys to do it. Of course, I'd love to be one of them, but I'm cool if it never happens to me. It's all good.
Yeah, of course. And we all the fans want you to win one time. But
thanks, man. I appreciate it greatly.
We don't need you to win to keep inspiring everybody,
Cheers, buddy. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Have a good one, man. We'll see you around. Hopefully we'll see you in Portugal one of these days.
Portugal.
Yeah, man.
We'll see ya. Well, awesome. Well, that concludes the press conference. First and foremost, just want to thank Lionel. Want to thank all the sponsors again. Freshie, Lululemon, Whoop, Zwift, Canyon, Discord, Blue 70, Form, and Louis Garneau, and Head Wheels. And then also to the team that is all a part. Ivan O'Gorman, to Justin Slade, Mikal, Pat Lemieux. Anything else you want to say?
I want to say, good job, Talbot. Is this your first time doing a total MC of something?
I mean,
so. This is great work. You never missed a stride on this.
I prepared. First time I've ever prepared.
Yeah, you didn't fumble no words, nothing. Good job. Great work.
Lastly, Lionel, we just restocked his store online. You can find everything from headbands to hats to tons of Lululemon products. So that is fully restocked for worldwide shipping, and it'll be available for the next 7 days. So don't forget to go there. And other than that, we'll see you out on the race course.
Sounds great.
Awesome.
Cheers,
Thanks.
buddy.
No limits, everyone. We'll see you.